Yo, good morning. Good morning, freedom marchers, freedom family, freedom lovers, freedom fighters. How y'all doing this morning? Snapzilla Gorilla, aka The Definition here. Welcome to Freedom's March. And today I will be discussing whether or not protein is necessary to build muscle. Discussing whether or not an all-fruit diet is cohesive to, healthy living in human beings. Hold on. What? We'll be discussing that. Because listen, this whole idea about an all-fruit diet is not necessarily a new thing. It's been around for years. Big Soldier was good. Yeah, I just heard about that. I was actually starting to watch BF's video about it when I was like, oh shit, hold up, let me do this live stream real quick. But yeah, I heard about that shit. That shit's crazy. So anyway, yeah, that's wild. The fact that Ryan Garcia would be even entitled to, the idea that Ryan Garcia would be entitled to fight for a belt is crazy. But anyway, so there are a lot of people out there, right? There are a lot of individuals out there in the fitness space that are touting a fruit diet and an all-fruit diet, and there are certain issues with that I feel needs to be discussed, which is already being discussed for the most part. I mean, but mainly the idea that you don't need protein to build muscle is wild as well, But the thing is this: protein is not only necessary for building muscle. It's necessary for a lot of different things in your body. Also, you need fat. Fat is also necessary. And on an all-fruit diet, depending on what fruits you eat, you're not going to get the necessary amount of fats, necessary amount of cholesterols. Cholesterol is also important for human function, for the human body. Your cell membranes are made of cholesterol. Your brain cells are made of cholesterol, And so this idea that you don't need protein is wild, right? Now, there is this individual who calls himself Dr. Yahiki, I think. Yahiki. I don't know if I even spelled it right, but he has been viral as of late. Even though he has been, pushing this idea for quite a while, for some reason he keeps popping up in my timeline. And I felt like I needed to discuss it because we need to have a basic understanding of human physiology, right? And a basic understanding is that there are multiple things you need to build muscle. And muscle is important for human function. That's just the bottom line to it. God's Gaming Group, or Cole's was good. Cole's Gaming Group, I think it says. Listen, you need protein, all right? You need exogenous protein. You need amino acids. You need, so there are three things that you need for muscle building, for muscle protein synthesis. Queen Sister Cameron, how you doing? You need protein, number one. You need energy, number two. And number three, you need water, right? Well, there are four things you need, actually. So you need protein, you need energy, You need water, and you need stimulus for muscle growth. You need all those things. Stimulus for muscle growth, which is basically like resistance training, whether it's body weight, whether it's with weightlifting, something to put your muscles through the stress of having to be, oh, you got the book already? Sister Cameron, you got the book already? That's crazy. Well, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you love it. I'm glad you love it. I appreciate the praise coming from someone like you. That's crazy that you got the book already. I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's what's up. Have you finished it? Y'all, Sister Cameron supported your boy by purchasing my book on Amazon, and she said she loves it. I appreciate that. I know there's some editing work that needs to be done, right? That's why I definitely want to put out another edition with a much better editing job. But I appreciate you, Queen Sister Cameron, for purchasing the book. I really do. But wow, that really lifts my heart a whole lot. Okay, that's what's up. Hey, however much you got through, I'm glad you enjoyed what you were able to read through. Lift my spirits though that you're enjoying it so far. But listen, you need those things for muscle growth. And muscle growth is important. Now, do you need to be a big, bulky bodybuilder? No. But as you live through your daily life, you use your muscles. And if you're going to use you should be. You should be doing some form of exercise. You should be doing some form of resistance training. And you need certain components. You need certain building blocks. Now, this Dr. Yahiki character, he would say that, he says that, fruit, you need that carbon bond, right? You need that carbon bond. Well, you need carbon bonds for every single atom or whatever, molecule, right? You need a carbon bond, right? That's common sense. There are certain things you need. There's certain building blocks of life that you need. You need certain elements, which one of them is carbon. Of course, you need carbon, you need nitrogen, you need oxygen, right? You need all these different things. You need all these different molecules. Of course, that goes without saying, right? Now, and you need oxygen. You need H2O. And that's another element you need. Of course, you need water. Like I said, you need carbon. You need those things. But guess what? If you are trying to build muscle without protein, it is going to be nearly impossible, right? What's going to happen is even some fruit, a lot of fruit has protein in it, not very much, but there is protein. There is some amount of protein in fruit, right? And your muscles are made of protein. You know what I'm saying? Your muscles are made of protein. And the protein is made up of amino acids. In order to have these amino acids, you need to consume protein, which your body puts through a certain cycle, right? The cells go through a certain cycle in order to create, your cells creates these amino acids and builds them together. You know what I'm saying? Your RNA comes out and builds these things, but you need the building blocks. One of the building blocks is protein. Your body breaks it down and absorbs it and uses it. It breaks it down. And the idea that you don't need protein to build muscle is crazy. Now, on an all-fruit diet, how are you going to get the amount of protein you need? Well, you're not. Your body is going to catabolize itself so that other parts of the body that is going to prioritize gets those proteins. You know what I'm saying? So like organs, certain critical organs, your body's going to use proteins from your muscle. It's going to break it down. You know what I'm saying? Now, the idea that you can't build. You can't tear down muscle and rebuild without protein. But this guy says all you need is that carbon bond, right? Well, the carbon bond is necessary to keep these proteins together, right? To keep things together. But you still need the proteins there, right? So if you have no muscle or if you have no proteins, what is the carbon going to bond to? What are those carbon bonds going to bond to? They're not. But you still need the carbon, right? Now, do you need the carbohydrates? That is the question. You don't need, carbohydrates are not essential. It's not an essential nutrient, right? Because your body can create carbon. Your cells aren't going to create it, right? Protein, all proteins have a certain amount of carbs in it. No protein that you're going to consume is going to have zero carbs, right? So let's say if you consume some meat, you're still going to get a certain amount of carbohydrates from that meat, right? So one thing that Yahiki said is that the muscle is made up of carbohydrates. That's not true, right? That your muscle fibers are not made of carbohydrates. What happens is the muscle, right, gets filled up with glycogen. If you consume a good amount of carbohydrates, your muscles are going to take up a lot of glycogen, right? You're going to have a lot of glycogen stores in your muscle, which basically your muscles are holding a lot of water, which gives it that full look. Your muscles are going to look full, but what's happening is the water is being absorbed around the muscle fibers, right? And your muscles use these glycogen stores for energy, right? That's the purpose of the glycogen in your muscle, is that your muscle is using the glycogen as energy. And if the glycogen stores are full, then guess where the carbohydrates go? They go to fat stores, right? They then go to fat, right? They get converted to fat and, adipose tissue and not just adipose tissue, visceral fat, right? And so, yes, your muscles are going to have glycogen stores, which is, for every carbohydrate, like for 1 gram of water, for 1 gram of carbs in the muscle, your body is going to hold 4 grams of water or something like that, right? So each carbon atom is going to hold up to 4 water molecules, basically. And so, yes, your muscles can get filled up with water. The muscle group, right? So that muscle tissue, that organ, right? Let's say the bicep or the tricep is going to be full of water. Your deltoids, your trapezoids, your chest, your pecs can fill up with water, with glycogen stores. But it's not just water, it's water and carbon, right? They're going to have glycogen stores, but the muscle fibers themselves are not made of carbohydrates, right? Those are made up of proteins, right? Amino acids that your body uses to build muscle. The muscle fiber itself, not the water, not the glycogen that your muscles fill up with. You know what I'm saying? So you can build muscle without carbohydrates, without a huge amount of carbohydrates, right? You can build muscle with that. You'll just have a more cut, you won't look as puffy. You won't look as full. you'll look what they'll say you look flat. You won't look as big. You won't be holding as much water weight. That's basically what you're doing. If you don't consume carbohydrates and you're building muscle, and you have a high protein diet, high protein, maybe high protein, high fat diet, or a moderate protein, high fat, or moderate fat, high protein, the muscle you build is going to be more cut, right? They're going to be more striated. You're not going to see the puffiness. You're not going to see the fullness. You're going to see more striations. You're going to see more fibers showing through, right? You're going to have less adipose tissue as well, because not only are you depleting the glycogen stores in your muscle, you're also going to be going into depleting the adipose tissue, which is the fat. You're going to reduce your body fat, and you're going to reduce your glycogen stores. This is going to make you look more cut and flat, right? So this is what happens. If let's say you're doing a bodybuilding contest and you're going to competition. Well, during like weeks and weeks and weeks before the contest, right, you're going to be carb loading, right? To get good pumps. You're going to help build the muscle, right? To help build the muscle with the carbohydrates, right? Because again, those glycogen stores are going to help you get that energy to build the muscle, right? You can load up with carbs, get all these glycogen stores, and you're going to have the energy to build that muscle, right? That's where the carbs come from. The carbs give the energy to build muscle, right? It's right there in your glycogen stores. Your muscles are using them when you tear them down as you're doing the movements. And you're going to get a nice pump, especially if you take some creatine. You're going to get your muscles going to fill up with that water a lot more. You're going to get a nice pump. You're going to get nutrients to your muscles, all that good shit. That's why creatine is important. Now, let's say you're 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 weeks out, or 1 week out from the bodybuilding contest. Good morning, Queen Mother Shakila. How you doing? Let's say you're just days out, weeks, a couple weeks or 1 week out from the bodybuilding contest. Well, a lot of people are going to carb deplete. They are going to go into an extreme cutting phase, right? So they build all the muscle. The muscle has been built, but guess what? They consume a shitload of protein. So let's say you're a 240-pound bodybuilder, right? And you done, guess what? You're going to be consuming 240 grams of protein. Ask any bodybuilder that actually builds muscle. They're not going to go on an all-fruit diet. They need that protein to build that muscle, but they are consuming a lot of carbs just to have the energy to look full, right? And so what happens is, if they're going to go in a cutting phase really, really close to show day, right? So they're going to cut out all the carbs, all of them. They're basically going to go on a keto diet. They're basically going to go on a keto diet. They're going to, and all that shit, and maybe even not a keto, because keto is high fat. They might just do mostly protein. But what ends up happening is, if they're not consuming enough fat, they're not going to have the energy. So they're very tired. They're very zapped. You know what I'm saying? They can barely perform. You know what I'm saying? Because the energy is not there, because they're not consuming enough fat, and they're not consuming the carbohydrates. So what happens is, you go in that cutting phase, you stop consuming the carbohydrates, you're going to lose a lot of water weight. Your muscles going to drain the water. This is going to make your muscles pop more. Not look fuller, but pop more. You're going to get the striations. You're going to get the cuts. You're going to get all the things that you want. You're going to have good conditioning, is what they call it. You're going to have great conditioning, because your muscles are going to be striated. They're going to be more cut. You're going to look conditioned. Now, the day of, you're going to start consuming carbs, so that it's not going to be enough carbs to make your muscles look so full to where you're not seeing the striations. No, you're going to get a good pump. You're going to get the You're going to get the vascularity. You're going to look a little bit fuller, right? So instead of looking flat and cut, you're going to look full and cut. You understand what I'm saying? But when you consume the carbs the day of or the day before, you're not building muscle with those carbs. No, you're just filling your muscles with water weight. But because you have been depleting, you're going to look a lot more shredded, and that carb intake that you're taking after so many days without taking any carbs are going to make you look, it's going to make you look, it's going to make the muscles stand out more and be more cut. You know what I'm saying? But guess what? All that muscle you built was because of the protein. Yeah. The muscles are made of protein, but you use the carbs for energy. Your muscles use the carbs for energy to build the muscle. But it's not, you're not building the muscle with the carbohydrates. You're building the muscle with the protein, and you're just using the energy from the carbohydrates to perform the exercise, right? Because your body's going to start looking for the energy. And if it can't get the energy from the glycogen, if you don't have glycogen or you're not consuming enough fat, then it's going to start getting the energy from the muscle. La LaRue was good. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, you need the energy to build the muscle, but the energy can come from fat as well. You can be fat adapted, and you can build muscle with the energy from the fat. It's just that you won't look puffy. You'll look flatter. You know what I'm saying? You'll be more cut. You'll be more striated because you'll have barely any body fat. Because the fat you're consuming, your body is going to use it for energy immediately because you don't have the glycogen stores. If your glycogen stores are depleted, then it goes to the fat, right? Whether it be the body fat that you have or the fat you consume, right? And so that's what you're doing. But that key element, the thing that is completely 100% necessary to build that muscle is the protein. You can build the muscle without the carbs, and you can build the muscle without the fat. You have to have one of the or the other, though, right? If you are on a high fat diet with no carbs or barely any carbs, you're going to get the energy from the fat. But if you're on a low fat diet, but you consume enough carbs, you're going to have the energy from the carbs. You just need the energy source to build the muscle. You know what I'm saying? So, now with this all fruit thing, the problem with that is you're not going to get enough protein to build the fat. It's just not going to happen. To build the muscle, it's not going to happen, right? You have the energy. You have the energy, but without the muscle, you're not. I mean, you're probably going to go in a catabolic state. You know what I'm saying? And you might. It's just it doesn't work like that. Now, this Yahiki character who claims that you don't need protein, I don't see very much muscle on him. So, not to say that he's trying to build muscle, but I just think it's very interesting and shall I say irresponsible to tell people you don't need protein to build muscle, right? You don't have to be a bodybuilder, right? You don't need a whole lot of protein, right? If you're not interested in building pounds and pounds of muscle, you don't need to consume a shitload of protein. But if you want to build any muscle, or if you want to maintain the muscle you have, or you want to build a little muscle, let's say you want to gain 3 or 4 pounds a year, you're still going to need protein. You're going to need a surplus, a slight surplus of calories that consist of protein and a good amount of energy. You know what I'm saying? But in an all fruit on an all fruit diet, where the fruit you're eating, right? Like I think he said something. He did a watermelon juice diet. Like he's even talking about juicing, right? With when you're juicing and you're just drinking fruit juice, it's basically sugar water. You're not getting the you're not eating the flesh of the fruit. You're not getting all the nutrients that you would benefit from that fruit, right? Including the soluble fiber, right? Not the insoluble fiber, but the soluble fiber that your body can use. You're getting a lot of sugar, right? Now, they want to try to convince you that sugar from fruit is just so much better than sugar, like, say, processed sugar. But what are you doing when you juice? When you juice a piece of fruit, you're putting the fruit through a process, and you're mostly getting the fructose, right, from the fruit. But you're not getting the soluble fiber and all the other nutrients, right? You're getting the nutrients, but the soluble fiber helps slow down the sugar absorption that you're getting, which could spike your insulin, right? So it can cause problems, right? But if you eat a whole apple instead of juicing the apple, you're going to get more benefit from eating the whole apple as opposed to juicing the apple. If you eat a whole orange, you're going to get more benefit from the whole orange than you would from juicing the orange, because you're going to be slowing down the absorption of sugar in your bloodstream, which you don't necessarily want, right? So I don't know. I don't know what they're getting this from. There are a number of people like Cali Muscle, right? Cali Muscle did a watermelon diet, and he never really did look very healthy, right? His skin was always pretty bad, but after a while, I think he did a 30-day watermelon diet. He did not look good at all, right? He looked like he was wasting away. He clearly was not building more muscle. You could tell that muscle was being torn down from him, right? Because he was still training. And nonetheless, even though he was still training, he was eating nothing but watermelon, and he was not building muscle. Can you build muscle with plant-based protein? So, La LaRue, that's a good question. This is what happens with when you eat plant matter, right? So let's say you eat plant matter, like if you eat plants to get the protein, you would have to eat a shitload of plants to get the amount of protein you need, right? Because a lot of the nutrients within plants are locked in the cell walls, right? Cell walls, plants have cell walls. Animals do not, right? The cell walls lock in a lot of the nutrients that you would get from it, right? That's how plants are able, because they don't have vertebrae, they don't have an exoskeleton, and they don't have vertebrae. So in order for them to stand upright, in order for them to be rigid enough, they have these cell walls. The cell walls are basically insoluble fiber, right? That's where the insoluble fiber comes from. And because of that, the human body cannot process the cell walls. It just can't. The human body's not made for that. Cows do it. Cows can eat. There are certain mammals that can eat plants and insects that can eat plants, but they have certain enzymes, and they have so many chambers in their stomach that help break down the plant matter to get the nutrients. We just don't have that. Humans don't have that. So you would have to do things like cook the plant, right? Cook the plant in order to break the cell wall down to consume it. But again, you're going to be denaturing a lot of the protein and a lot of nutrients that doing that. So you would have to eat a shitload of that plant. But if you are going to be on a plant-based diet, they have a way to isolate the protein from the plant, and that's where you get the protein powders, right? You need the plant-based protein powders, like the soy protein isolates and the pea protein isolate. What that means is they're isolating the protein itself from that cell wall so that your body can better absorb it. So yeah, you can get protein from plant-based foods. It's just there are certain things you have to do to get the most benefit from it. So again, you'd have to cook the plant to break down the cell walls in order to get those nutrients. But then again, you're denaturing it because of the heat that you would have to produce. And then I know you cook meat as well, but the meat protein is a lot more absorbable, right? It's more bioavailable, way more bioavailable, to the point where, yeah, you can cook it and still get a good amount of protein from it, still get the nutrients. But like with beef, ruminant animals, you don't have to cook the shit out of a ruminant animal to consume it, right? And not get sick, right? Like beef, you can eat a rare piece of beef and be okay, right? And the rarer it is, the more absorbable it's going to be, the more bioavailable it is. Plants are just not as, I would say, like non-fruit plants. They're not as bioavailable as meat or fruit flesh, because the plant wants you to eat the fruit so that you can spread the seed. That's why it creates the fruit, right? It doesn't want you to eat the leaf, and it doesn't want you to eat the stems or the roots. That's how it takes up the nutrients from the ground. And the leaves are how they absorb sunlight through photosynthesis. And the stem, right, it helps hold that plant up. It delivers the nutrients to the leaf and takes in the sunlight through the leaf, and it transfers it throughout the plant. So plants have certain defenses because they can't move, they don't have claws, they don't have horns or anything like that. So they had to come up with a way to protect itself from being just eaten all willy-nilly. So that's how this works, right? And now fruit, in order to protect the fruit, it'll create a skin, right? You don't want to eat the skin necessarily, because again, that skin is going to have a whole lot of insoluble fiber. So you want to open the skin up. You want to get to the flesh. The flesh is where the nutrients are. You're going to have some soluble fiber in there, right? Because it's still going to be cell walls, but it's not going to be as rigid. It's not going to be as tough. Your body's going to be better able to process it. So yeah, fruit is good, but not very many fruits have a lot of protein in it, and not very many fruits have a lot of fat. So what I say is you have to find out what works best for you. And I don't understand why people keep pushing these diets to where it's like, oh, you should only eat this and don't eat that, and eat this and don't eat that. Well, find out for yourself what's best for you. Experiment, eat different things, and find out what your body is susceptible to, like what you have food sensitivities to, right? Some people are sensitive to wheat gluten, some people aren't. Some people are sensitive to shellfish, some people aren't. Mind Man Samosa was good. Absolutely. Freedom is not free. Some fruit, some people, they can't eat peanuts or peanut butter. Some people, they have certain food sensitivities, right? That other people don't have. You got to find out what causes you inflammation. You'll know when you eat it, right? And that's what I've been able to do. And I learned that leafy green vegetables are not good for me. So when I stopped eating green leafy vegetables, I was okay. But I can eat potatoes and be okay, right? Which is, interesting, right? I can eat yams and potatoes and all that shit. But if I fry the potato in an industrial seed oil, I'll get a headache, right? But if I fry it in beef tallow, it's perfectly fine. So you just got to find out what works best for you. You know what I'm saying? But I know what works best for me is, a nice, good amount of red meat in my diet. That works best for me. So in one of the least, one of the foods that causes the least amount of food sensitivity in most human beings is red meat. But they'll tell you red meat will cause heart attacks and this, that, and there is bullshit, right? That's bullshit. They try to link red meat to heart disease, but it's not true, right? What happens is that the people that they're saying that have heart disease based on red meat, they're eating a lot of other bullshit. They're eating a lot of bullshit with that. They're eating industrial seed oil. They're eating French fries. They're eating junk food. They're eating crap. They're eating processed foods, highly processed sugar, along with that red meat. But they just decide to pin it on red meat because these people are metabolically unhealthy based on all the other shit they're eating. So it's easy to demonize the red meat. But it is what it is, y'all. You got to find out what's best for you. Now, this guy going around pushing an all-fruit diet. Oh, you don't need protein. It's very irresponsible. Jay with Open Eyes 4 says they lump it in with processed meats too, especially for colon cancer stuff. Well, here's the thing about processed meat. They're demonizing processed meats as well, but that's not really what's the processed meat. It's dry aged. They might have put vinegar in it. They might have put celery seeds on it, to cure it, right? They might have smoked it. These are what they call in a process. Yes, it's going through a process. I don't think there's a problem with processed meats, right? Oh, why how they came over processed meats like salami and prosciutto and all that stuff. It's just to preserve it, to naturally preserve the meat, because during winter you had to find a way to have the meat last through winter, and so these were the ways they did it. They would dry age it, they would salt it, right? They would cure it so that they could eat it throughout the winter. But it depends on what the process is. Are they adding unnecessary chemicals to the meat? If they're just hanging it in a smoke room, or if they're just dry aging the meat and cutting it up and calling it salami, or cutting it up and calling it prosciutto, or if they're cutting it up and calling it, or if it's a hot dog, well, what's a hot dog? If it's an all beef hot dog with the collagen and the bones and all these different things, right? They put the asshole in there. Well, if they're putting connective tissue, they're putting those type of things in these hot dogs that contain collagen, that contain things that your body could use, right? Well, I just joined you talking about Yahiki. Yeah. I am talking about Yahiki. Yahiki, whatever his name is. It's not a problem as long as it's preserved without the chemical nitrates. Yeah. But you also have to understand that some of these nitrates occur naturally during the process, right? Because that's what you know what I'm saying? Just like RSBT, and if they're not processing it with those things, if they're just grinding up, organs and some meat and some things in all beef hot dog and molding it together and putting a casing on it, and they're saying, oh, that's processed meat, you shouldn't eat it. That's bullshit, right? Or if you're curing bacon with celery, with celery seeds or with celery salt, or, different things like that, then, and if you're smoking it, because smoking is a way to preserve meat. If you're smoking it and they're saying, oh, well, that's a process. Yeah, I mean, you just got to figure out what they're talking about. And here's the thing. Much of, especially red meat, if you consume red meat, very little of it makes it to the colon. Very little meat waste goes to the colon. So how is it going to cause colon cancer? Yes, yeah, with open eyes for. Anyway, guys, I got to get up in this doctor's appointment before they make me reschedule. Anyway, much love. Like, share, subscribe, and we're going to keep marching forward toward freedom.